just been talking about the relationships between sensory modalities and different ways of kind of processing the data of the world, if you like, and turning it into different forms of knowledge or different forms of experience. And one of the things that I've been thinking about recently, which is kind of occupying my mind to a certain extent, is to do with movement and motion and the significance of motion. Because I think there's something about all of these sensory modalities which requires movement in order to operate. And here I'm thinking about, for example, Alvin Noe and Regan's ideas to do with inactive vision, which is this idea that in order to be able to see an object, we're effectively moving. We move around it. Our bodies are in motion constantly, and the sense of an object, its shape, if you like, but its sense more broadly, is constructed through that motion. And even on a more finely grained level, the pupils of the eye, the eyeballs, are constantly in this little sort of shimmering state. They're constantly saccading, tracking the edges of objects, tracking differences, really in the patterns of light that are falling on the retina, trying to track those patterns. And it's really through the motion of the eyeball, the motion of the head, the neck, the body, which allows vision to happen. If my eye was perfectly fixed at a point and my eyeball wasn't moving, I wouldn't see anything. The retinal cells would stop firing after a couple of seconds, and I would effectively I would just go blind. It's only the fact that I'm moving constantly which is giving me information. And that information is drawn from the moving. The various muscles in my eyeballs, even the tiny ones that just doing that little saccading thing, are constantly sending signals to my brain, which are recording the differences in those moves and kind of mapping them and creating kind of spatial journey around the world, if you like, around the world of my perception, which is and kind of making allowances for it, really. So when I look around, I don't see the world in motion, and I can't see the saccading of my own eyes, because all of the kind of proprioceptive information from the muscles and the body more widely are being fed to parts of my brain, and they're being kind of totaled up and mapped out and effectively extracted from the information that is, hello there, extracted from the information. So I am seeing a coherent thing. Hello. So I am seeing the world as a kind of stable, coherent whole. I'm not seeing it as this blooming, buzzing, jerking about confusion I would otherwise see it as. So seeing requires me to move around. It's not something I can't just sit in the chair and look, even though it might feel that's all I'm doing. And the same applies to all the senses, I think. Certainly touch. If I lay my hand on the surface and kept it perfectly still, I wouldn't feel a thing. I can only feel the hardness of it because my hand is moving backwards and forwards, in and out, very slightly, only probably less than a millimetre at times. But that's enough for the senses, the kind of motion sensors, if you like, in my hands and my arms, to detect that and give me information about the hardness or the softness of the object, according to how much my skin is being depressed. The texture of the object that my hand is on, I can only detect because my hand is moving, even if it's just shaking very, very slightly, imperceptibly. That's enough to gather the information about that shake and about what's happening at the nerve endings, what changes are taking place at the nerve endings during the course of that little tiny backwards and forwards journey that my fingertips are making. So that information too, the information of touch, is coming out of motion. And I mean hearing, yeah. Hearing just is motion, isn't it? I mean it's vibrations, compression waves hitting my eardrum. Those compression waves moving my eardrum in various ways. That information travelling to the tiny bones in the ear, going through the cochlea, moving these mechanoreceptive hairs in the cochlea backwards and forwards. And I'm interpreting that motion as hearing. And indeed things like balance as well, which are also taking place up there, I think. I think those are the main senses that we as humans get. My dogs obviously having very different ones. So as I talked about before, this olfactory world that they live in, this world of smells, is one that they're constantly navigating. They're in motion all the time. and their noses rose up in the air, almost like they're tracing the contours of smells. I suspect, although I have no evidence of this, I suspect that if it was possible to hold a dog down and not allow any motion at all, that its sense of smell would be very restricted. Actually, having said that, I mean, smell, I think, as well, is a bit like that sort of sound thing. It's the molecules that hit the receptors in the nose come in on waves of air, don't they? So I think there's motion just implied on that, really. So I think motion is really important in all this. I mean, I certainly enjoy and find it easiest to think when I'm moving around, although I've no idea what the relationship between that is. Why I'm saying that. But moving about and feeling things change around me and seeing things change around me, seeing the trees and the objects in the landscape line up in different ways around me is fantastic. Hearing the sound of airplanes going overhead, the sound of trains and cars in the distance, and the birds, of course, I hear a lot of birds on these walks, and hearing that soundscape change as I move through it is a never-ending source of fascination. And of course these canal boats, so I can walk by the canal. Here's one now. Hello there. Morning. Morning.